All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am here to discuss the Denver Nuggets loss as they take on the Clippers from last night. That was not a good game. 126 to 122 was the final score, and just a pretty disappointing performance from your Denver Nuggets, and one that, we can't really sugarcoat. Denver had everybody back. Aaron Gordon did return. That was a positive to see. That's completely something that people should be excited about. But the way that Denver responded and the way that they ultimately played, not something that should be written home about at all. Once again, I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button down below. Hit that subscribe button. Would really appreciate it. We are into December. It is no longer just an October and November podcast where gotta talk about what we're actually seeing and can't really sugarcoat it. It's important to not overstate the significance of one game, but also to me, it is important to understand just like there's not going to be a lot that shifts. There's not going to be a lot that changes with this group unless they make a change themselves. Really quickly, this podcast, as you know, it's brought to you by the good folks over at BetOnline. They continue to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen, with the largest selection of odds from everything to football, to NBA, to college basketball, to NHL, to even UFC. Head on over to BetOnline today, and don't forget the promo code BELIEVE for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, this will be an interesting show, and I'm going to be hard on a lot of people. I think that it is an unfortunate sort of place for Denver to kind of be right now, but they get back everybody. They have a whole bunch of reasons to be good, and then they go to LA and they put up one of their worst defensive performances of the year, which would have been their worst defensive performance if there weren't already a whole bunch of bad defensive performances, like the one that they just had to the Knicks, where they couldn't guard Jalen Brunson or Karl Anthony Towns or OG Anunoby. Now they can't guard James Harden or Norman Powell. Cedric says, "Sup, Ryan? Hope you had a good Thanksgiving." I did have I had a good Thanksgiving. I won't say it was great, but I did have a good Thanksgiving. Got to spend it with family, as one tries to do. It's not perfect, but it is what it is. Fernando says, "What's up, Brian?" What's up, Fernando? Thanks for hopping in. And Cedric here with the super chat. He says, "What's worse, this loss or the first time playing the LA Clippers?" I think with the first one, if you guys remember back to that game, that was one where Denver didn't know how to play offense for the first half of that game. And then they figured it out. And then their defense kind of fizzled out in that game. But at least you could see the progression through the game. With this one, it was almost the exact same game script, except Denver didn't know how to play defense for the entire time. And the offense was okay. It was actually like, I'm not going to sit here and blame the offense in any way, shape, or form. They put up 122 and they absolutely screwed the pooch because they couldn't defend anybody. So I think this one was worse in particular because, yeah, Denver got their guys back and still didn't matter. So, going to be tough. Matt says, "Good morning, Ryan. Can we as Nuggets fans just accept that maybe Calvin Booth has had some bad decisions and it's time to move on from his vision?" That's a little tough because the vision got Denver a championship. And I'm believe me, I'm one of the first people that sits here and has complaints about the way that things have run for Denver, to be clear. But I'm not going to sit here and say that like it's time to move on from the vision is the right call. Like, I think that there are things that Calvin Booth can still do that will affect things in a positive way. Now, did signing Jamal to a max contract extension make things very difficult? Yeah. did signing Dario Saric in the offseason make things very difficult? Yeah. It would be nice if Denver had a rotation player they could play around with. Instead, they have Dario. Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther are still contributing to what Denver's doing. And they're still having some good stuff. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that they aren't. But in terms of what you can actually believe in and what the team trusts from a night-to-night basis, the way that they're playing is just not good enough to give me belief that Denver can be a champion, that they can take over for Murray and Porter not playing up to the level that they need to play. Specifically Murray, obviously. But we'll talk about that all. First, you know what? Let's do about 10 minutes here on the game last night. We'll talk about that, and then we'll have more existential, overarching questions in the second segment. That'll be the way that I think that we can do this and do it accurately. First and foremost, the Nuggets in this past game, as I mentioned, the defense was not good. The Clippers had a 125 offensive rating, and why that is notable is because the Clippers have the 24th ranked offense in the NBA, at least heading into last night. They should not be that good, despite the fact that they have James Harden, who is still a very good offensive player. They should not be able to score as many points as they did. The way that they were able to maximize things is they spaced the floor out half to hell. Denver couldn't defend, especially with their second unit. I am looking at the box score from the game last night. Jokic's defensive rating was 117.9, which means that in the minutes without him, Denver's defensive rating was closer to like a 135. Aaron Gordon's defensive rating, for what it's worth, was a 131.5, and he had some overlap with what Jokic was doing. The defense, no matter who it is, continues to be a problem. It's not just when Joker's out there, although Joker was not good defensively last night. Jamal was not good defensively last night. I don't think you could point to anybody and say that they were good defensively last night except for Peyton Watson. And then he had some bad possessions late in the game where couldn't really contest shots. He looked like James Harden pushed off a little bit in the game last night, but Peyton Watson got pushed under the stanchion effectively on a pull-up too, and Denver was not able to get the job done, especially on the defensive end. They weren't able to execute any of the defensive schemes that the Nuggets were asking for them to do. And that's really where I kind of come down to. Watching last night's game and watching an 8-man rotation, Denver had their playoff guys. Like, they had a whole bunch of guys. Obviously, Aaron Gordon will be in the starting lineup when it's all said and done. But if I told you that you have the starters, Aaron Gordon, Russell Westbrook, Julian Strawther, then Peyton Watson in the starting lineup, that's about close to what Denver's full strength group is going to be. Aaron Gordon plays backup center. Denver has a shortened rotation. This is what it's supposed to look like from a roster construction standpoint of how you're going to play when you're serious. And Denver just wasn't able to do much of anything on the defensive end. They looked stretched thin. They looked like a team that could not execute the schemes that the coaching staff has long wanted for them to do. That it takes a lot of high effort. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of desire and want to and ability to execute. And maybe Russell Westbrook was the only guy that could really execute that on a consistent basis. And then I look at the box score, and Russell Westbrook has a 140 offensive rating or defensive rating last night. Like, when Russ was on the floor, the defense was horrible. Now, it's not Russell Westbrook's fault, and I'm not sitting here and saying that, but the numbers are the numbers. It's just frustrating to see Denver with 3 days off, with Aaron Gordon coming back, who should hopefully give you some reinforcements, with everybody supposedly refreshed, reinvigorated, doing what they can to, hey, let's turn around. Let's get the bad taste of the New York game out of the mouth. And then they played the Jazz on Wednesday, and they got down double digits in that game. They have 3 days off, as I mentioned, and they get down double digits in the first half again because that's just what they do. The numbers on that, by the way, are pretty brutal. If I go to first quarter and second quarter net ratings, you're going to be very frustrated to hear what I have to say here. Let me just have this pulled up so that I can speak accurately on it. First quarter, the Nuggets have the 16th rated offensive rating and the 28th rated defensive rating. They are really bad. Overall net rating wise, they are only 22nd, but that's because they are a minus 7.2, and there are other teams that are even worse. Denver's first quarter net rating is horrible. Now, second quarter, they actually had a pretty decent second quarter last night. But overall, they're 26th in second quarter net rating on the season because they just can't defend. On the season, they are 28th in defensive rating in the second quarter. And the only teams that are worse than them are the Washington Wizards by 0.2 points and the Chicago Bulls by 0.1 points. Denver is very close to having the worst defensive rating in the second quarter in the entire NBA, which makes it all the more infuriating that despite like last night where Denver's defense really was horrible in the second half, Denver's got the third best defensive rating in the third quarter in the entire league. They can turn it around. It is capable. They have the ability to do so. And then in the fourth quarter, it's not tremendous. They're 12th, but that's good enough. Like that's fine. And the offensive rating that they have in the fourth quarter is 5th in the NBA. So net rating wise, they are 4th. They can do it, which is why it's so irritating when they choose not to, or when they're incapable of executing these rotations that they're trying to do. Yeah, just a brutal thing. Mr. Exquisite Nugget with the super chat says, Ryan, it's Cedric. I hit 100 or 50 subs. Spread the word. Congratulations, Cedric. Good for you, man. Keep going. Everybody go subscribe to Cedric's YouTube. He's been doing some Nuggets content. Man. But like, it shouldn't be this difficult for Denver. It shouldn't. Last night was obviously a little bit backwards in terms of the data, in terms of what they're expecting to have happen in these games in particular. Like Denver's defense actually was decent in the first half overall, but not good in the second half. But that just makes it all the more infuriating that they are not able to lock in. They're not able to execute these schemes. They are just overwhelmed by the Clippers. I just don't understand how it is. Like, you would think that I would be able to get it, but I don't. So I'm going to keep asking questions when Denver plays tomorrow night. I'll certainly be asking questions for sure about why the team is unable to execute in those moments. Probably won't get a great answer, but we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. But yeah, like Denver in that game, let me just put a wrap on the Clippers game in particular, because I don't really feel like talking about it that much, but let's just put a wrap on it. Jokic wasn't great offensively in that game. He had 28 points. He had 11 assists. He had 5 turnovers. He shot 12 of 24. There were a couple of threes that missed, and he missed a couple free throws. And there were things that he could have done on the offensive end that would have benefited the team. And especially when I look around at the rest of the rotation and think, okay, well, yeah, Jamal wasn't great, but he shot 7 of 12, 2 of 4 from 3. Mike wasn't great, but he shot 8 of 11 from the field. Made his only 3. Peyton Watson was 6 of 9 from the field. Christian Brown was 5 of 7 from the field. The only one who shot under 50% in the entire game was Russell Westbrook. Shot 3 of 11, 1 of 5 from 3. He did not shoot the ball well, but he did have 8 assists and 0 turnovers in that game. So he was still helping out. The offense for the team wasn't bad. Denver as a team had a 121 offensive rating. That would lead the NBA. That's not the issue. The issue is the defense. And Denver's just got to find a gear to be able to execute it. They have to be able to find something that they can do in order to get themselves an advantage. And the focus just has not been there. Where, yeah, they went on like a 15-2, a 17-2 run in the middle of this game to get themselves back into it and ultimately get a lead. But to not be able to sustain that and to just be interrupted the entire time and getting out of flow and not being able to execute down the stretch, that's where the questions really start. When we come back, we're going to talk about what this Nuggets team is right now and what they need to be better, what they need to be an actually really good team, because I think they're kind of far away. We'll be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, we're back. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Would appreciate it. Yeah, just a brutal one, just a tough one. Denver's 9th in the NBA right now, or in the Western Conference in record. They are 10-8. Phoenix is 11-8, right above them. The Clippers are 7th at 13-9. San Antonio is 11-9. Yeah. I think in general that the Nuggets are struggling at this point with the consistency, with the ability to fully engage at this point in the regular season and not be able to do the things that many people are asking for them to do. And we're getting some stuff here. Okay, well, yeah, cool. Goodbye. Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion on the other side of things where, yeah, just December 2nd. Like, today is December. it's they're not even a quarter of the way through the season. There's still a lot of time for them to turn some things around. That's the sentiment I think that a lot of people have. They're only 4 games back of the OKC Thunder, so they can turn things around, right? Well, kind of. Because this is the group. This is what Denver's supposed to be able to do. It's not like the Clippers are a bad team, but they are, I think, what I would describe as the perfect foil to a team that believes that they're a title contender and actually isn't. The Nuggets at this point have too much riding on this season to not be able to take that one seriously and to not be able to execute the game plan defensively. At this point, I was thinking that Denver would be able to at least look good in a stretch against a really good team. The Lakers are one thing. I'm just not really impressed by the way that the team has approached things so far this year, by the way that everything is up and down. Everything is super dependent on Jokic being great. Like I said at the end of last segment, Jokic wasn't perfect in this one. He wasn't even really great. He was merely good in this particular game. But that shouldn't be the difference between a win and a loss. It shouldn't. Jokic had 28 points, 14 rebounds, and 11 assists. Like, if you can't find a way to win around that, then what are you really doing is a fair question. Denver as a team shot 10 of 19 from the free throw line. I need to check that as the season number, but I would expect that Denver at this point is not ranked very highly in free throw percentage as the team. They are 26th. They are second in free throw attempts because they are getting to the free throw line a reasonable amount. They didn't do it last night, but making 10 free throws in an entire game is crazy. The other thing, of course, is they are last in 3-point attempts. They're third in percentage. They can shoot the ball accurately, but the question is not whether they can shoot the ball accurately. It's whether they can get up enough valuable shots in order to take advantage of the fact that they are a good 3-point shooting team. Or, well, I'm not even sure if they are. If you pick and choose when you're going to shoot, that doesn't make you great as a shooter. They've got to get the volume up. To me, this still just comes down to Jamal. Still comes down to who this team is at their core and what they can expect from their core players on a night-to-night basis. Jokic, you can expect great things. He will elevate his game when he needs to, but I think he's kind of fed up of things right now. I do think that there's a lot with him where he just has to carry the burden the entire time, and it would be nice for him to not have to be that guy all the time. Jamal last night had 18 points. He shot the ball efficiently, but he wasn't able to get separation from Chris Dunn for much of the game. Chris Dunn had 4 steals and 2 blocks. It wasn't all on Jamal, but there was plenty of reasons to be concerned there. Derek Jones Jr. did a decent job limiting Michael Porter's shot attempts, despite the fact that Porter shot 8 of 11. That's the thing that you want to do against Denver. You want to direct the ball away from their stars. Make guys like Jokic can make shots. He can make the tough shots. But I think that they'll live with it if Jokic is not giving out a whole bunch of assist opportunities. Now, Denver did get 37 assists. Like, again, the offense wasn't that much of an issue. But this is just sort of an extension of who the Nuggets are on a consistent basis. Jamal is merely okay and not great. Michael Porter, for as much as many people and many Nuggets fans are wanting to elevate him into that second option role, he doesn't take enough shots in order to be a second option, man. He doesn't. Denver doesn't look for him enough in order to be a second option. They're never going to without Jamal, like with Jamal there. Jamal does assist him. There's no doubt about it. But the way that Denver's offense is structured and the way that they are structured with Jokic, they are always going to be a team that is either going to be Jokic and Jamal or Jokic and 4 other guys. It's never really going to consistently be Jokic and MPJ because he can't dribble and handle like as effectively as you would want him to. It's not enough playmaking opportunities for him. They're never going to trust it. So it comes down for me to, can Jamal handle some of that burden? And when Jokic is off the floor, can he elevate his game enough to be able to create some shots for people? And the answer so far this season has been vehemently no. Like what Jokic and Jamal do when they're on the floor together is noted. Like those guys are still very, very good together. But for the most part, hasn't really been good enough when Jamal is on and Jokic is off the floor. If I go to PPP stats and I go look up Denver's numbers with and without Nikola Jokic, effective field goal, actually, let's go to true shooting percentage. True shooting percentage with Nikola Jokic for Jamal Murray, 55.1. Without Jokic, 48.1. For Michael Porter, with Jokic, 62.1. Without Jokic, 55.5. That's just who it is. That's just what happens. The usage rate, Jamal's been very low in terms of usage rate for much of this season. It's actually kind of interesting. He's only 22.5 with Jokic, 23.7 without him. Last year, he was way more elevated. He is trying to get out of the way a lot more this season, But that is not what you want from your second best player. You want the guy who's making $50 million to not get out of the way. You want him to really like, absorb that as much as possible and take on the burden. And he's just kind of shirking the responsibility with the intention of, hey, I'm not playing well right now. Let's get out of the way of what's going on. That's not the answer. Denver's never going to get an answer that way. So right now, I think they're stuck. I don't think that they're in a good spot. And again, a lot of people are going to say it's early, Ryan. It is early. But I got this sense from the team last year. And then they played reasonably well from December and then into January. And this team might do the same thing. They might be able to overall like kind of recover the record a little bit. But in terms of what this team's ceiling is, I just kind of think they have a lower ceiling than many wanted, many hoped. Jokic increases the ceiling only to a certain degree. Like he can do as much as most any human can in a basketball context, but he's one player. Denver needs multiple players to be able to extend that ceiling, to really have some gas. And they don't. Here's a crazy stat for you. Jamal's season high this year is 28 points. Michael Porter's season high is 26. Norman Powell last night came back from injury and had 28. Like it's possible. James Harden had 26 shots, got 39 points, and Norman Powell still had 28. You're capable of doing it. And the fact that Norman Powell has been a more consistent second option than either of Denver's two stars this season is why the Clippers are the team that they are. And mostly it's the defense, to be clear. But Powell has really given them something extra. And Denver just doesn't have that. So it's just very frustrating. And I know that a lot of Nuggets fans are very frustrated too. I think that the only way that this is really going to be solved is if there is a mentality change from Jamal Murray, maybe even from Michael Porter Jr., or if the Nuggets make a change themselves. Right now, the way that they are operating things is not working. And I don't feel like that's that crazy of a statement at this point. What I am seeing is not a contending team. I don't see a team that has that gear that is willing to get to the place where they are uncomfortable, but trying and really making themselves vulnerable because of how hard they are trying. They're not trying that hard. And the overall level that we are seeing from them is just, it's not the same as it was. So, what do? You can't trade Jamal Murray. He signed the contract in the offseason. He's ineligible to be traded. So do you trade Michael Porter? Do you try to get another ball handler in here like a Zach LaVine? Somebody that clearly is on the market and is willing to be moved, and the team that they're operating is willing to move him? That's a trade that I've been playing around with for a while. There are other moves that Denver could potentially make if they are willing to, but I'm just at this point where what I see right now with the current group is not good enough. And I do believe that the team is getting stale to the point where sometimes you just need to change something up, and maybe that kind of reinvigorates people. I don't know. 10-8, it's fine if you just say it like that. In the West, it's never fine. That gets you 9th place. So are you going to go out of your way to make the team better, to get better, or are you going to sit back and watch it happen? I know that there's some question marks. All right. that is going to do it for me for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning into the show. Appreciate the love and support. Hit that like button on the way out. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a pod tomorrow or the night or the day after because Denver plays on Tuesday night. I'm not sure if there's enough to talk about between now and when that game actually happens. So should probably do it after the fact, but I'll revisit. I'll make sure to talk to you guys again. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. I will talk to you guys very soon.